So, welcome, Charla, all the way from Malgas. Charla doesn't just make the wine in Malgas. Charla actually lives there, so she's not one of the traveling winemakers. She's put in the area of Malgas. So, Charla, I think let's start first telling those people who might not be 100% sure where exactly is Malgas and what makes it so unique to the other wine regions of South Africa.
Well, I first want to say hello to most of you who've actually been here before. The Kings. Helena, hello. It's nice to see you guys. So you guys know we're in the middle of nowhere, basically. So we are about 40 kilometers from Swellendam. We had a flood about 3 weeks ago. It was, oh no, sorry. About a month ago, a bit more than a month ago, and we couldn't actually get to the farm. We couldn't get off our. And people who've been around there knows it never rains there, and it's super dry. Our roads were all blocked off from Swellendam to Malgas, and it was a very big thing. So basically 40 k's from Swellendam, 50 k's from Swellendam, very bad dirt road, all along, grain fields and wheat fields. Just a very, very interesting area, very dry area. This last year we've had incredible rains, and it's just been super amazing to just see all the water around us. Today it rained yesterday as well. It was like 20 millimeters. It's crazy. It's just been an insane season. So we're about 3 hours from Cape Town. And one of the most southeasterly vineyards coming up the east coast.
So I guess all this rain you're talking about is we think that Malgas, we've seen pictures of it. It reminds us a little bit of areas like Chateauneuf-du-Pape with all those stones in the vineyard, and definitely not a place where you can put too many digger loaders in there or you'll probably break them all. So what was the process for planting your vines, and how are you managing your vineyards? You've mentioned that they're all bush vine. So what's the thinking behind how you work the vineyards and the thinking behind the bush vines?
So, I'm going to start from the beginning. David Trafford is the owner. I did invite him to come tonight. We'll see if he joins the party. He came here in 2000, and there was nothing planted here. It used to be an ostrich and wheat field. And the people who've been here would know, it's these round river stones, and then below schist and shale. And you don't really get that anywhere in the world, where these two different and very difficult soils to grow in actually are on top of each other. So when he got here in 2000, him and his wife, they wanted to escape the toddlers. And now that I have a toddler of my own, I can totally understand why they escaped to Malgas, because there's nothing there, no noise, no anything. So they went there for a weekend, and they weren't looking to buy a farm or anything. It was a very rainy day, and they drove around, and then they saw this piece of land for sale. And obviously Malgas isn't very big, so when they see someone coming in without a CCK registration number, high alert, like, who's this? What are they doing here? And driving around, and the estate agent took them to the farm and said, "You're from Stellenbosch?" And he said he's a winemaker. Anyway, long story short, he dug a few profile holes on the farm, and he just said, "Here, I want to plant some vineyards." It reminded him of Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and I was lucky enough to go there a few years back, and I still think that Sijnn is more harsh. It's definitely more a rugged, harsh area than Chateauneuf. And then Portugal, the Douro, so with the river, and then the more schist shale. And then, we don't have terraces. Our site isn't as dramatic as Portugal. but it looks a lot like the Douro and that whole area. And then obviously this is schist and shale, and then Mediterranean climate. So I think the main thing was we want to plant things that are sustainable. We want to make sure that what we're planting and what we're doing is sustainable. And so much respect for David, thinking so far ahead, being such a pioneer. It's not just Grenache is the flavor of the month, that's what we're going to plant, or Tempranillo. So he was really, he's a visionary. So he said he wants to plant things that are more Southern Rhone, Southern European. So things like Syrah, Mourvèdre, Touriga Nacional, Trincadeira, Grenache. We've planted some Barbera now. Things Chenin Blanc, Viognier, Roussanne, Marsanne, waiting for Assertico. So hopefully soon we can get some Assertico. We're on the waiting list. What else have we planted? A random variety, or a very selected variety of Mediterranean cultivars. And when he started there, I still remember he told me, he's like, all the farmers, all the wheat farmers and ostrich farmers would drive around and just say, you're crazy, like, what the hell are you doing here? Because we're the only winery out here. The closest is probably Buffeljacht side, so that's about 60 to 80 kilometers away, or then towards Ashton, or then Elim. So like in a radius of about 100 kilometers, that would be our closest wineries. And so obviously people, the more conservative farmers around here, just thought, like, what on earth is going on here? So difficult farming. It's a very dry area. The average rainfall, they say, is 350 millimeters. Since I've been here, I haven't seen, except for this year, I haven't seen more than 250. So it's been quite an interesting journey. I started in 2014, and prior that, they hit 350. But in 2018 and 19, we got 190 millimeters of rain. I think Joburg got that in 2 days' time, so it's just very, very difficult conditions to grow in. But David keeps on saying, now that it's raining so much, he's like, you can't ride that drought wave anymore because it's raining so much. So so that's basically the history of why he planted there, and then the cultivars and the thinking behind that. And just the planting is obviously, I've never planted in my life. And then when I got there in 2014, they're like, cool, you've got to plant 10 hectares. And I was like, how the hell do you plant? And you literally take a kufut and you wiggle the soil, take a shovel, move all the rocks. There's no soil, it's more rocks. And then you put in your little vine and you put some sand in and some compost. And it's a very humbling experience. And just to see, how these vines actually grow in these intense conditions. So,
So I guess some people would ask, why the hell did you go out there then? Because did you really not know what you're getting yourself into, or was it David? Because I think that if a young winemaker gets the opportunity to work with David, then you want to take that. What was it that drew you to actually joining the same team, or to lead the same team?
I was in America before I started working at Sijnn, and I think I there realized that I like the more nomadic lifestyle and the more out there lifestyle. I lived on an avocado ranch, and there were bears around us, and it was pretty intense. And I just thought, I'm definitely not. Into Cara, and that was fun, but I was like, I need a challenge. And I used to work at the bakery and selling wine, and that was one of the wines. But I had no idea that Malgas is in the middle of nowhere. When I got back, I sold my car. I didn't have a car. I asked my boyfriend or husband, now, give me a lift to Sijnn. And he's like, do you even know where it is? It's a very bad dirt road. I was like, well, I saw, it's between Stellenbosch and your parents. So, it's some way realistic for me to base myself. And he's like, okay. And I was still looking at like small cars. Now we drive a because you can't drive anything else on these bad dirt roads. So I think I really thought, what he's doing here, I'll never get the experience to work with this variety and with a leader like him or a mentor like him. And I mean, it hasn't been easy. When I got there, he's like, this is your cellar, this is where you're making wine. And before that, I've never run a cellar by myself. I used to be an assistant or just do a harvest. You don't take the responsibility of managing a team and managing a vineyard. I think I've learned so much about vineyard, just like working with vines. That I still learn every single day. And I told my husband the day I stopped learning, he must just say, no, you're not learning it, because there's so much to learn there. So I think the challenge, and then just the mentorship from David, and the fact that I don't think anywhere else I would have gotten the opportunity to manage vineyard, wine, marketing, and a team. It's such a diverse package that I get to work with. So when I'm tired of sitting in front of the computer, I can go into the vineyards and prune, or if I don't want to prune, or if I need to do something else, it's just, there's a lot to do. So the challenge is cool.
Cool. So let's then go over to the wines. I think that everybody wants to know what's going on in the glasses. And I'm really, really sorry for so many of you that might not have these new wines with you. We were planning on having Charla with us actually 2 weeks ago already, but then thankfully we decided to not continue with that and keep Charla off the airlines and the airports. And then we thought, well, we'll just send all the wine out to everybody who wants to taste along. But then lockdown came, we couldn't even do that. So terribly sorry that we couldn't deliver wine to all of you in advance. But maybe this is the incentive you need to go and buy them now after the tasting. So fortunately, the wines arrived in Joburg in time just before last weekend. So I'm fortunate enough to have the wine in my glass. So Charla, shall we start with the white or the red? How do you prefer?
Let's do the white first. So just a quick thing of how we make the wines. We've got a very natural approach to making wine. So no yeast added, little bit of sulfur, no filtering, no fining, everything is done in barrel. And our vines yield very low. We get about 3 to 5 tons per hectare. So the concentration and the intensity in the wines are just magnificent. And just the purity. You taste the soils, you taste what comes from the vineyard. So my work is basically just to make sure that what comes out of the vineyard is safe in a barrel and then goes into a bottle. Or I say it so simply, but I don't. If anything goes wrong in the cellar, then it's my fault because I didn't look after it. Because the quality from the grapes are just really good. So white 2019 that I'll be tasting. I know there are a few who have 2016. I don't know what everyone else has. Maybe some of you have the 2019 as well. But white 19. It was out of all our vintages, this has definitely been the driest vintage or growing season. 180 millimeters of rain, which is absolutely nothing. So we got a very, very small crop. And this is also the first vintage that we got some Verdelho, which was very cool. It's our first, the Verdelho that we added to the blend. In this vintage, I did a bit of, so in 2017, we got a new press. Prior to the new press, we used to use those old hand basket presses, so we could never do whole bunch pressing. So when we got a press in 2017, I started doing a bit more whole bunch pressing. And so 2019 has about I think it's about 80% whole bunch pressing and then 20% crushing. I think that the whole bunch pressing really just makes the wine super elegant and super just fine, and it makes it more, I know I'm not allowed to say this word, but a more feminine style to the wine, and a bit like just something that I enjoy. So I'm definitely playing around a bit more with the crushing and the pressing and whole bunch pressing and crushing. So this is Shannon driven, 84% Shannon, 14% Viognier, a blend of like 2% of Roussanne and Verdelho. It is fermented in about 10% new oak, and the rest are all older oak, and 400 liters and 700 liter barrels. And then after about 10 months, I do a light bentonite fining, so it's like a clay fining, so no filtering, and then I blend. I choose the best barrels, which is usually all of them go into the white. The white is pretty easy to blend and to navigate. The one thing that I have to always watch out for is the Viognier, which can be quite overpowering and quite dominant with like this white. It's got like this white flower, stone fruit that can kind of take over. But I think in general, this is quite a fine, lean, elegant wine. All our wines generally have this Malgas flavor profile to it. It's almost like a fynbos flavor. But there's also beautiful savory notes to our white, which I think is very appealing. A white stone fruit, apricot, peach,
Well,
beautiful natural acidity. I think this is good acidity as well. The TA of this is 6.8. It's quite good for natural.
I don't have your wine, obviously, Carla. I don't have your wines, obviously, but I have tried your wines previously at estate in your place. But don't you think don't you have too much of a green tannin in a white wine if you do whole bunch pressing?
That's a good question. No, I don't think. I mean, which obviously green tannins come from when you maybe pick too early and you do a pressing then. But I don't think. No, definitely not in this one. Our pressing is also very very soft, so it's not a big. It's still a basket press. The pressing is very, very light and so no, I don't think I get too many green tannins extracted. I think it's just a finer, leaner tannin perhaps.
Yeah, if I may say, I do pick up a difference in your wine to many other sort of blends. There's very much, so for that much Shannon, there's definitely this sort of difference. And I do think that this whole bunch pressing that you're doing it definitely adds sort of, it's kind of a nice, that fynbos note that you're talking about, I think is accentuated in a way, but there's quite a lot of Viognier in here and it doesn't show so much. I'd actually love to hear from Dave, has a 2016 in his glass. So it would be interesting to hear from Dave, what that shows like, because I do think that this wine for me, I mean, I don't know for you guys, you can see this color. It's a quite a dark color for a young wine, but then so maybe you can explain, where does the color come from, because it's not exactly light colored, it's quite a dark color for me on such a young wine, but my personal tasting is amazing, so
yeah. I want to touch on Dave. Dave, you guys are drinking the white 16. In that vintage, I actually added about 400 liters skin fermentation. And you can see the color is super dark, golden. So this color is actually quite light compared to this. But I did a skin fermentation on the 2016 and only crushed. There was no whole bunch fermentation there. So it's quite a rich, full-bodied, characterful wine. It's 2019, it is a lot more cleaner, mineral, or flavor profile. But your 16 is quite interesting. Yeah, I kind of balance out.
Oh dear. Oh, I was fearing that Charla's connection is going to drop us at some point. Yeah, we might have to send a signal out with a boat or something. I don't know. So Charla, I hope you can come back. We've lost you. She's completely gone. Okay, so tell us, Dave, you back. Please tell us about the 16 in your glass. What's your take on it? I'll unmute you. Dave, are you there? Yes, Dave?
Sorry, Colleen, did you say something?
Yes, I wanted to know, you've got the 16 there. Tell us a little bit about the 16 while we wait for Charlotte to just come back on the waves.
Well, I think the color is definitely darker than what I can see of the 19.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, it's still full of fruit. Obviously, it doesn't have the Verdelho in it, but it is drinking fantastically.
It's also almost 10% less.
And I mean, I think just Charla's wines are drunk to last. So this still has a good few years left in it. We've drank some of the older whites and they still are drinking really well. I mean, there's still lots of fruit. This will last a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And that is the thing with the Sijnn wines. I know that whenever you sort of discover an older bottle of Sijnn on your wine shelf, you're very happy because you know they just last. They are made in a way that she's managed to preserve so much more than just fruit flavors in the wine. And I think that that little tannin structure that she has really contributes very nicely.
Can you guys hear and see me again?
I think the reds last even longer because of the Portuguese varietals. So the reds will last even further than the white. The reds, we're drinking 2012 reds and they're still unbelievable. Still so much fruit.
Yeah.
What is happening with your own range, Charla?
I am busy with labels at the moment, so I'm actually very excited. It's the first year that I'm actually really trying to focus a bit more on my own label, and yeah, so I'll hopefully release in August. I'm highly pregnant, like 35 weeks, so hopefully before the baby I can do a release of my wine. But yeah, so definitely focusing a bit more on my own things at this stage, or not at this stage, just trying to be a bit more serious. I think the last few years have just been trying to just manage Sijnn, and my own project is like a sideline where now want to focus a bit more.
Great. Okay, so shall we move on to the red? For those who don't have it, we are looking at the red 2017, the highly rated by Tim Atkin, and it also received a fantastic 5 stars at the end of last year in the Platters Guide. So we definitely not the only people who love your wine. So lead us through this one. Tell us what's going on in this bottle.
Yeah, I think working for David, it's always interesting. Like, he gets like 7 5 stars, and he was almost winery of the year. And when I got my one little 5 star, I was blown away. So that was quite funny. But and it got red blend of the year, Syrah red blend of the year. So I think as a Mediterranean blend, it's so it's so refreshing to see Mediterranean style wines doing well. I think it's definitely, our climate is very suited for Mediterranean cultivars. So red 2017, it was a really good growing season, 2016-2017. People always ask, vintage variation at Sijnn. I must say the last 6 years since I've been there, the vintage variation hasn't been as great. I know in Stellenbosch, they say they've got the 09 and then the 12 and the 15 and 16 were so amazing, but mostly I'd say we've been quite consistent in vintage variation, just because it's been so dry. We haven't had extreme weather except now for this year. So yes, Red 2017, love this wine. I think it's super elegant. I think we're definitely starting to fine tune our wines and definitely starting to see what's working, what's not working, what we should add. And I think I'm becoming a bit more confident in making the wine and not just experimenting, but knowing, okay, the Touriga needs more pump overs. The Syrah, we can do a little bit more whole bunch. I think I'm becoming a bit more settled in what I'm doing there. So Syrah driven, little bit of Mourvèdre, Touriga, and Trincadera. I must say, out of all the vintages, for me, this is a lot more like the 2015, so it differs from 16. But I think the 15 vintage is quite similar to this one. So we basically pick the bush vines. We do sorting in the vineyards. We don't have a sorting table or anything, so the picking is really important for me. I think I've definitely started focusing a bit more on the sorting in the vineyards, and taking out. We've got a lot of bird damage, or there's a lot of birds around us, so making sure that doesn't go in. I think the vineyard work has just been really, really good, and just really focusing on vineyard work, and I think this is the product then. As I said, you always get that savory component. I just always pick up like licorice, and then like a dark meaty, or like a bloody meaty flavor with licorice. So it's got like this aniseed meets inky dark meets raspberry and strawberry flavors. And I think it's I think on the I think our wines are just really, as I said, it's such a like a terroir driven wine. If you drink this in a lineup, and you've had Sijnn before, you will probably pick up that it's a Sijnn, or you would think it's more an old world, either French or Portuguese, or maybe not Portuguese so much, but more like a French style Southern Rhone blend. So one thing that we're playing around now with is we planted some Grenache, because it just grows so well and it's just doing so well in these soils, and having to add that to the blend and kind of seeing where that goes or where that would fit in. Up to now, we've kind of known, Syrah based, Touriga, Trincadera, Mourvèdre, maybe a touch of Cab as well. But now with the Grenache and the Tempranillo coming into play, it will be interesting to see, what we choose and in which direction we're going now. So but I think this is quite a focused wine. I don't think there's too many wild flavors or too many wild elements to the wine. Focused, I think, is a good word for the wine.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good word for the wine. It is not my first sip of this wine. I must say, I think the bottle is not going to last very long. But for me, there's this concentration of fruit that's not a ripe fruit. It's just a beautiful sort of. And you said there's not wild flavors, but funny enough, it reminds me sort of a wild berry, and then it has this lovely tannin grip, but it's a tannin grip that it does remind you of not too many other South African varieties, because it's not the same as a Cabernet grip or something. It's got this really tight, fine grip. I absolutely love that. And that again, for me, is an indication of where this wine, the longevity this wine's going to have. It's just going to go forever and ever. So you, Charla, well done on this one, eh?
Yeah, all the vineyards, but and Dave, you earlier said that our wines are, you're busy drinking the 2012. Our wines are made to age. Our wines are definitely, because the yields are so low, and our what we do in the cellar, we don't do too much. So it's literally, what the soils are giving you. And our wines are made to age. It's definitely, our red wines, we're selling the 2011 now, and it's tasting amazing. Someone said that they're drinking the, I think Anneke, you said you're drinking the low profile 2011. Yeah, how's that going?
Sorry, I have to unmute Anneke there, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah, hello, Charla and Amal. Yeah, so it's gorgeous. Yeah, it still seems very much alive. It started off spicy and earthy and a little fynbosy, touch of VA, but really picking it up. Yeah.
But it's improving in the glass as
it's changing as we go. Yeah, it's fresh for such an old wine, and now as it improves, it's getting really nice dark cherries and blueberries actually, and so very fruity wine that's 10 years old. And I mean, it's not one of your top wines; it's an entry level one. So, am I right? Was this Touriga Nacional or mostly Touriga Nacional?
I think there was definitely Syrah, but I think there must be about 30-40% Touriga as well. I don't think it's Touriga driven. I think it's Syrah still. I think that's the majority. But a lot of Touriga,
I thought that 2011 was the one that was different. That I think it was the first one, and I don't know why my memory tells me 90 or 95%. Touriga Nacional.
I'm going to go check. I must actually,
check here quickly. It's a lovely one. Anyway. And I'm so sad I didn't buy more of these because that's my last one now.
We don't have more, sorry. Just for everyone who doesn't know, low profile. So that's so the whole blending profile or the whole blending process is I would go through each and every barrel because we ferment everything separately. And then around July, August, we would taste through everything, and I would basically choose my number one. So number one means it goes into the red blend. Number two, I'm not sure, it's either red blend or low profile, and number three is low profile or we chuck the barrel out. And then I do that a few times, and then David also comes and he does that. And wherever we differ, we kind of chat about it and see why do we differ, and and then he says, cool, well, let's make up a few samples of this, and then that's basically our blending process. But we taste obviously a few times, and the low profile is everything that doesn't go into the flagship, but it's still such high quality grapes. It's just barrels that we don't feel fit our flagship or doesn't represent that vintage that well. So it's definitely we've bought in some grapes for that now, or juice for that, from Cape Winelands, some Syrah just to bulk up because most of our wines are actually going into the red blend now. So so it's actually a good thing.
Yeah. Charla, tell us, there is also another wine coming along very shortly that you're releasing. So David has sent out these little cryptic notes about, watch out, there's another Sijnn. You want to tell us about it, or is that all still hush hush?
Which one now? Which one? Oh, there are a few things that we're working on.
I'm asking you because David posted something to say there's another special little Sijnn number coming.
So next week we're releasing Off Center, which is I don't know if anyone, I think David, you guys maybe have tasted that at the cellar, but Off Center is basically everything that's not center. So it's a Trincadera driven blend with a little bit of Touriga and Syrah. So it's something that not many people have tasted before, and it's something we just want to see, what would a wine taste like if it's if it's Trincadera led. And so we only made about 1,000 bottles of it, And in all these COVID times, we thought it's fit to release something off-scented. We also have a port coming up, which is very interesting. The first year that I've made port, 2019, it was, I must say, it's not something I necessarily drink that much of, but it was very interesting going through the process. When I worked in Portugal, it was an interesting time, and it was just super fun learning from them how to make port. And so we've made 2 ports already, one very traditional, lots of extraction using only Touriga, and then 2020 I did a little bit of whole bunch and Trincadeira and Tempranillo and Touriga, so a lot lighter, more out there style. So interesting. So a few interesting things coming up, and then the other things I can't talk about yet.
Okay, and then Charla, I think that there's already some interest in any case, and if we had you with us in person tonight, we would have tasted some of your own wine. So if you don't mind, I know this is all about saying tonight, but after all, the Charla Haasbroek wines are from the same farm. So you want to tell us a little bit about your own wines and what we're looking out for this year when you release those things that you have to label before you have a new baby on hands?
So much work to do before a baby comes. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. No, so I think it's very cool. David gave me the opportunity to make my own wines. He kind of forced me into making my own wine. I think he thought, oh, she won't have enough work to do, so let's make her own label. So he kind of said, freedom, I can do whatever I want. I can make a few barrels of white and red. The first year I made some amphora wines and amphoras. The second year the amphoras cracked, so I started doing a bit of whole bunch as well. So the new vintages coming out would be Trincadeira 2019. I love Trincadeira. I think it's like one of the most vibrant, funky cultivars, and there are not a lot of them single varieties in South Africa. I don't actually, I think Drukmei Niet maybe has a bit, but not a lot of people actually selling on its own. I make a cab, and then I've got a Viognier that I'm releasing and a Chenin Blanc. So hopefully by August, everything will hit the trade. Working on some new labels. As I said, personally, I've developed a bit more, and I'm a bit more confident in what I'm doing, and just focusing a bit more on what I'm doing. So so that's my little journey. But I'll definitely get some to Joburg.
Awesome.